Monday, the 17th of August, 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. This week, I want to deal with something I see misunderstood about advisory boards. And bear with me because this is a problem that actually you can name it as putting the cart in front of the horse, if you may. So people hear the words advisory board and think advice. A group of experienced people meeting every month or every quarter, a few opinions, a few introductions. Perhaps somebody knows somebody useful, and that is all right. But then everybody leaves. That is not how you think an advisory board should work. But unfortunately, the majority of business owners, founders, probably many C-suite that are actually looking for advisory boards is the way that they think about it. So, but the thing is the other way around. The first job is not to give you more governance, more advice, or another sounding board. The first job, before even setting up an advisory board, is to help you make sharper decisions around the stage your business is in today. So if you look in front of us, advisory board operating system, you have at the top scale, at the right predictability, on the bottom systems, and on the left the edge. The edge is your transformation, your innovations. And at the center is the advisory board operating system. And that center is the key. It connects the four areas, so your business is not discussing growth in one meeting, capital in another meeting, risk somewhere else, and transformation 6 months later. The point is an operating system. So your advisory board is formed before you select the people, and the formation is how you operate that in a way that actually the advice stop being a talk shop, and becomes a real value for your organization. We talk about how value can be created and how can value be preserved in prior weeks. This is a prior stage, how you form your advisory board. And it's not selecting resumes or HR agency or selection agency. It's thinking about your business where it is today, right now. And let me walk you through 3 problems you should consider before thinking or selecting an advisory board. Problem number 1 is that businesses often build the advisory board around people rather than problems. So someone knows a former CEO, fantastic. This is a very good connection. Someone knows an investor, which is a very good too. Someone knows an industry expert, or all these things sound very impressive. So they get invited to an advisory board. But what problem are they there to solve, right? Because you can invite the names for the name tag, if you may, for the visibility, the credibility, the authority, but what problem are they specifically there to solve? So if the company needs scale and the room has no serious commercial, serious, I don't mean like people that know what they do. I mean players in the commercial people or partnerships capabilities, impressive biographies do not solve the problem. The milestone has to come first. That's what I'm trying to say. So first, you have to be very clear what you're looking for out of the advisory board before even thinking which should be the characters that are going to, or you are going to invite to join. Problem number 2 is that growth problems move faster than hiring. And this is a big problem because hiring a good people, first, beside availability, is the research, then the interviews time, then the offer time, then the negotiation. It takes months and sometimes a very few thousands before even making an offer that could be considered. So your next issue might be pricing in terms of your organization. Then it might be partnerships, then capital, and then cybersecurity, and then operation resilience, then technology. So when you're looking into hiring and you have this amount of issues that you need to consider, a permanent senior hire is useful when you know you need that role for years, not just for a period of time, perhaps of 6 months, a year time. But many strategic problems change shape. This is a reality. They change shape almost every 6 months or so, or every second quarter. So waiting 12 months to find a perfect executive for a 6-month problem is literally probably not a very good decision. And problem number 3 is that boards confuse activity with progress. Activity with progress. Shuffling papers around, shuffling meetings around, having discussions, but there is no real progress. So you have more meetings, more presentations, more opportunities, more reporting, more projects. But is the business becoming easier to scale? That's a real question. So it's not about the amount of meetings or coffees that you're having. Is how exactly this advice is going to apply to your business. For example, is revenue becoming easier to forecast? Are controls becoming stronger? Is the business building a clear edge? An edge, we mentioned edge last week, very particularly in terms of that innovation, transformation of your business is what makes you relevant for the future, right? If the answer is unclear, all these questions, the board is really busy, really. But the operating system is not weak. So you're not really operating a system to get the advantages of a very good people that you are going to call to help you with this. So let's take a look at this. This is what it looks like before and after an advisory board. Imagine you're building a house and every expert turn up whenever they feel like, or you call them, all these experts, and say, okay, here you have electricians, you have plumbers, you have decorators, you have bricklayers, roofers, you name it. So if they arrive at the time that the walls are not ready, for example, an electrician, or the decorator arrives before the wiring is done, or the plumber arrives after the floor is finished, you have a problem, because actually the sequence at the time that people arrive is not correct. They are all the right people and they are excellent at doing their job, but the sequence is terrible, right? But look at the picture on the right. That is what happened when the advisory expertise is not matched to is matched to the milestones that you're addressing. So that's why you have to put your thinking before even considering which are the right candidates for your advisory board. And this is the whole operating system that you have in front of you right now, right? So as a board advisor, what I would propose to consider is the following. Start with the business problem, not the advisor. So the first thing that you have to consider, which problem I'm trying to look advice for, right? So ask which advisory board operating system milestone is holding you back right now. And you have 4. If brand, for example, I walk it the other way around. So if you're thinking about branding, people or partnerships are creating strain in your business, then you have a scale problem, right? So if revenue, assets, or funding, your confidence or your business is weak at that, you have a predictability problem. So then I start to give you the clues. What is the things that you have to think before thinking in advisors? Let's see if controls or resilience or reporting or operational performance are weak. You have a systems problem, right? So sometimes people resolve that saying, oh, we had to put a harder KPI, or we had to review our KPIs or KRIs, or you name it, all those acronyms. But in reality, probably this is not about controls or individual performance. It's about business performance, which is a different thing. And then you have and the business performance is related to the system, that your workflows, your operation procedures, how you manage the things, right? And you might think that the strategy is losing relevance, or change is becoming scattered, right? You start to lose relevance in the market. So that's your edge. What makes you irreplaceable in the market? Or if an investor or a shareholder asks, why I should keep working with you? Then you say, well, actually, because of these. If you compare 2 similar businesses, some of them are with similar revenue, similar EBITDA, probably you are going to stay with the business that is more predictable, that have more relevance for the future than the one that say, well, this is the way that we do business today. And we've been doing the business this way for many years, and it's not that bad. So pretty much they are plateauing towards another company that's looking to say, we have a similar EBITDA, we have a similar revenue, but actually we are towards exactly that position in the market in the coming future, and here's the plan, and how we're going to control it, and how we're going to make it happen. This is a strategy. So these are practical differences. You do not ask one person to somehow cover everything: the commercial growth, the capital, the cybersecurity, succession, the pricing, the AI transformation. You match the capacity or the capabilities to the work, right? It's the same, exactly the same process with the advisory boards. There is another point, work making, I think, now that I mentioned. There is a study by the Development Bank of Canada. They compare businesses with and without advisory boards and found average annual sales were 24% higher and productivity 18% higher among the firms with advisory boards. And I will not treat these numbers as a promise, but the research gives you a useful clue, put it that way. Independent challenge, complementary expertise, and a proper decision reading matters, because actually the study shows already with an advisory board on purpose to the business, 24% increase in revenues and 18% in productivity. And sometimes the productivity decline, actually the study shows that the productivity decline was because the company lost their north, if you may. So the people were say, why we're going to stay here, why we're going to bother, in other words, if the company doesn't really know where they're going. So it's pretty much like a boring situation where every day is the next day, right? So, but when the company has a mission, a guidance, a process, a plan, a operating procedures, etc., productivity increases because the people engage, and when the people engage, then you have a better outcomes. So, the other thing that this particularly research found that leaders value something that actually is usually a byproduct of an advisory board, which is a sounding board role, right? But they put the advisory board first, the milestones of the company first before hiring the advisory board. And all this, I think it makes sense. As a founder or a CEO, there are decisions you cannot easily test with your team, right? So if you're a CEO and you want to test an idea with your team, your team has probably the same expertise that they had from whatever they are doing. But what about asking to somebody else that went through that route before? And what are the pitfalls and what are the advantages or disadvantages? So that is the usefulness of an advisory board too. So the team, the advisory board works for you. Your teams, they know your story, they know your preferences, they know what answer you want, right? An independent advisory board sits in a different place. Through an independent advisory board, you can say, for example, the growth story is strong, but the advisory board say, yeah, but the evidence underneath is weak. Your team won't say that. So you have that challenge to say, yeah, it's a very strong story, but yeah, we have an evidence actually it's not that strong. Is a pleasing conversation? Absolutely not. But this is exactly the purpose of the advisory board. If your teams and yourself are dwelling or plateauing in the growth story that is very strong, then you have a different point of view to see if that is the right path or not. Or you might have a people problem. But the real issue may be the missing operating assets, as I mentioned, as productivity. So I have a good colleague that is an expert in efficiencies. And actually, from seeing an organization, how they work, and standing in the shop floor, he right away came up 3 new efficiencies that actually the company has been working. And this doesn't mean that the companies were not, these shop floor, these manufacturers were not efficient, were not good companies, they were not doing profits and good revenues. He right away can see from seeing hundreds of companies operating at the peak of their efficiencies, he can stand in a short workshop and immediately spot at least 3 new efficiencies right away. So the people start to feel more listened, more engaged, more things that probably people said, they say, we told the company years ago that to fix this. And now somebody comes outside and fix it. So you see that people feel heard and they will be more engaged and more easy to work with. Absolutely, yes. And we've seen this happening. And also the other thing, advisory boards, if you're looking to hire a permanent executive for a problem, that might change in 6 months. And I mentioned this. And this is a big problem too, because you cannot have somebody that is sitting there fixing a very, very big problem and then sitting the next 2 years dragging everybody else because he's frustrated or she is frustrated because her or his function was completed 6 months, 2.5 years ago, and the next following 2 years are sitting pretty much idle. They are contributing, yes, they are useful, etc., etc. Yes, that's correct, but it's not exactly what they do. So they feel the career drags. They feel that they are not compensated enough for the things that they are doing today, or they might feel that they are with a golden handcuff, because they say, I'm paid very well to do a job that actually I don't like it, but actually I don't want to leave it. So you have to get a different dynamics in terms of team and advisors situations that probably are not the best for your company. That's a permanent hire. But if you have an advisory board that can rotate every 6 months, you have the best of the best at the time that you need it, and then you continue moving on with the next milestone. So those are useful challenges toward business outcomes. Now, how I can help you with this, definitely with outcomes, with a cleaner or a clearer board decision around the milestones that matters now. I can help you to identify that right away. The big differentiator is a rotate international advisory board. You get specialist capability faster than hiring one executive, lower overhead than a big consulting firm, and no talent locked in with members who can be swapped every 6 months as your needs changes. And the risk reduction, the big important thing here is a capability mismatch. You avoid hiring too early, keeping the wrong expertise too long, or allowing important issues to sit between management silos. Now, one action you can take home today, and just to wrap up, let's look at your advisory board jumpstart. So in the next 30 minutes or so, a very easy task, take one page, write 4 headings: scale, predictability, system, and edge. And under each one, write the single biggest issue your leadership team is dealing with today. And then ask this question: which issue, if solved first, will make the other 3 easier? And that is the jumpstart to your advisory board selection process. These are the things that are important for your team, for your company, your milestone. From there, you look the expertise, not the other way around. So let's pause it here for today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow I will move specifically into scaling, right? So your branding, your people, and your partnerships. I look at why commercial acceleration is not simple more revenue, and how brand, people, and partnership tell you whether growth is genuinely repeatable. And this is very important. If you lead a founder, if you're a founder or leading a company, or you're in C-suite with more than 50 employees and more than 100 million in revenue, and you want an international advisory board built around the milestones in front of your company, let's have a chat so I can understand where you're coming from, where you are today, where you would like to go, and I can explain how the model works, how members are matched, and how to avoid making your advisory board a talk shop, which is not the ideal situation. Right. Have a great day, and